Did you know that America once fought a brutal war with the Philippines that was never officially called a war? Imagine this: 3 years of jungle guerrilla warfare, torture chambers, concentration camps, and over 200,000 Filipino civilian deaths. But this war was so controversial that the American government refused to officially call it a war. Instead, they labeled it the Philippine Insurrection. To this day, American history books barely mention this conflict. The question is, why? Is America deliberately hiding its darkest colonial chapter? Welcome back to our Historical Mysteries series. Today, we're going to talk about America's most forgotten and controversial conflict, the Philippine-American War of 1899 to 1902. This is a war that technically wasn't a war, at least according to the American government. In this video, we'll explore how America, which had promised to liberate the Philippines from Spain, ended up trying to colonize the Philippines itself. We'll see how this conflict turned into jungle warfare, how torture and concentration camps were used, and most importantly, why the American establishment refused to officially recognize this entire war. Stay tuned, because the facts coming ahead will definitely shock you. The hidden truths of this war are enough to shake the foundation of American foreign policy. To understand how this conflict started, we need to go back to the 1898 Spanish-American War. At that time, Spain controlled the Philippines, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. America officially claimed it was going to free these territories from Spain. The Spanish-American War began in April 1898. The Philippines already had an independence movement running, led by Emilio Aguinaldo. Interestingly, America initially helped Aguinaldo fight against Spanish forces. USS Olympia commander George Dewey destroyed the Spanish fleet in Manila Bay on May 1, 1898, in just 8 hours without losing a single American sailor. But here's the plot twist. In December 1898, the Treaty of Paris was signed, where Spain sold the Philippines to America for $20 million. Yes, sold it like it was property. You can imagine the reaction of Filipino independence leaders. Aguinaldo publicly declared, "We were not consulted, we were sold like slaves." By February 1899, the situation had become explosive. Aguinaldo and his supporters declared the Philippine Republic and decided to resist American occupation. On February 4, 1899, the first shots were fired, officially starting the Philippine-American War. But here's an interesting fact. The US Congress never formally declared war. Instead, it was called the Philippine Insurrection or Pacification Campaign in official documents. This was a deliberate word choice. If they had officially declared war, international laws of war would apply. Prisoners would get war rights. And most importantly, the American public would have to be told the full truth. In the initial phase, American forces thought this would be a quick victory. Just like the Spanish-American War, U.S. Army General Arthur MacArthur, Douglas MacArthur's father, confidently declared that the resistance would be crushed within a few months. But reality turned out completely different. Filipinos adopted guerrilla warfare, hiding in jungles and launching ambush attacks on American convoys. Traditional American military tactics were failing in jungle warfare. Filipinos cleverly abandoned conventional warfare and adopted pure guerrilla tactics, small groups with local population support conducting hit-and-run attacks. American soldiers, who were trained for European-style warfare, were completely lost in the jungle. Filipino fighters knew the local terrain perfectly, spoke local languages, and could easily blend in among civilians. But the American response becomes controversial from here. After traditional military approaches failed, American commanders adopted increasingly brutal tactics. General Jacob Smith's infamous order was, "I want no prisoners. I wish you to kill and burn. The more you kill and burn, the better it will please me." The most shocking part is that American forces created reconcentration camps, essentially concentration camps where Filipino civilians were forced. These camps became centers of disease, starvation, and death. According to conservative estimates, over 200,000 Filipino civilians died, mostly from disease and famine caused by these camps. Water torture, known as water cure, became a standard interrogation technique. American soldiers would force water down Filipino prisoners' throats until their stomachs swelled, then stomp on their stomachs. Sound familiar? This technique later became famous as waterboarding. But here's the real mystery. The American press and public initially didn't know about all this. Military censorship was extremely strict. Letters from soldiers were censored, war correspondents had limited access, and official reports downplayed casualties and brutality. The few American soldiers who tried to expose war crimes were court-martialed. For example, Private William Lewis Kokak wrote letters home describing torture techniques. When these letters got published, the military punished him instead of investigating the crimes. An anti-imperialist league formed in America, led by Mark Twain, Andrew Carnegie, and other prominent figures. But the mainstream media and government labeled them unpatriotic. Mark Twain famously wrote, "We have gone there to conquer, not to redeem. We have turned many corners since then, and we have done things which would have made our forefathers turn in their graves." The question is, if this was a legitimate military operation, why so much secrecy? Why were official records destroyed? Why were war veterans discouraged from speaking up? Let's examine different theories that explain the American government's behavior and this war's cover-up. Theory 1. Economic imperialism. The Philippines was a strategically important location, gateway to Asian markets, especially China. American business interests, particularly sugar and mining companies, must have pressured the government to maintain control over the Philippines. The McKinley administration's economic advisors clearly saw the Philippines as a commercial opportunity. Some historians argue that the entire war was fought for economic interests, not for Filipino freedom. Theory 2. Racial superiority complex. Contemporary American documents describe Filipino people as uncivilized and incapable of self-government. President McKinley publicly stated that America needed to civilize and Christianize Filipinos, despite the fact that the Philippines was already a majority Christian country. This suggests that racial prejudices influenced policy decisions. Theory 3. Testing ground for future military operations. Some military historians suggest that the Philippines became a testing ground for new warfare techniques, particularly counterinsurgency methods. Techniques developed during the Philippine War were later used in Vietnam, Iraq, and other conflicts. Concentration camps, torture methods, and psychological warfare all were experimented with in the Philippines. In terms of evidence, censored documents that were later declassified reveal shocking details. Congressional testimony in 1902 had soldiers openly describing torture methods. General Arthur MacArthur's own reports mentioned civilian casualties and harsh methods. But these reports were kept hidden from the public. The most damning evidence is soldier testimonies. Private A.F. Miller wrote, "We make them prisoners, or pretend to make them prisoners, and then kill them." Sergeant Charles S. Riley testified, The torture of natives by our soldiers has been done repeatedly. But there's also an alternative perspective. Some military historians argue that Filipino guerrilla fighters also targeted civilians, and American brutality was a response to Filipino tactics. They claim that war crimes happened on both sides, and the American side has been unfairly demonized. The government's official stance today is still that the Philippine War was a necessary civilizing mission, and casualties were unfortunate but unavoidable in complex guerrilla warfare. Pentagon historians maintain that American forces followed international laws of war as much as possible under difficult circumstances. But critics point out that even conservative casualty estimates show disproportionate civilian deaths. If American forces were following international law, how do you explain so many civilian deaths? So, friends, the truth of the Philippine-American War remains murky today. Was this a legitimate peacekeeping mission or a brutal colonial conquest? Evidence suggests that reality is somewhere in between, leaning towards colonial brutality. The most important question is, why did the American establishment refuse to officially acknowledge this war? The answer might be that official war declaration would have meant international scrutiny, war crimes investigations, and most importantly, the American public would have to be told the complete truth. Today, the Philippines has American military bases, and both countries maintain friendly relations. But acknowledging historical injustices is important. Without understanding past mistakes, we might repeat similar errors in the future. Let me know in the comments. Do you think America should officially acknowledge the Philippine-American War and publicly apologize for war crimes? Or do you believe this was a legitimate military operation given the circumstances? Next week, we'll explore another forgotten American conflict, CIA's secret operations in Guatemala during the 1950s. That's another story of hidden American imperialism that's barely mentioned in official history books. Until then, keep questioning official narratives and always seek the complete truth. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more such hidden historical truths.